Okay, so this is the next video. In this video, we will see the next practice test to cover the Azure Data Fundamentals question. That is DP-900 exam question. So let's begin. So most of the question, maybe they are repeated, which are already covered in the previous test, practice test. But anyways, let's start. So you need to gather real-time telemetry data from a mobile application. So which type of workload describes this scenario? So this is the real-time data. So the real-time data is the streaming data. During ETL, extract transformation load step, so a column needs to be modified from this format to this format. So change. So which step is this? So to change one format to another format is the transformation step. It is not the extraction, not the loading. It's the transformation step. So they are asking during which step. So it's the during transformation step. Which Azure Data Factory component initiates the execution of a pipeline? So trigger is a component which initiates the execution. So whenever like trigger will hit, the pipeline will get triggered. So initiate is a trigger is a component which will initiate the execution of a pipeline. Okay, Azure Table storage supports multiple read replicas. Azure table storage supports multiple write regions. So first option is correct. That is Azure table storage support multiple read replicas, but it doesn't support multiple write regions. Polybase. So polybase is a component. So if you read the term poly means multiple, base means base. So multiple base. So polybase is basically a component through which we can like connect with a multiple database, whether it is Oracle, whether it is SQL, MongoDB, Teradata, any database, and we can perform the query. So polybase is used to query data from external data sources from Azure Synapse Analytics. So you have a custom application that use the Azure SDK to access the Cosmos DB. You are receiving an authentication error. Okay. So what type of credentials? So Cosmos DB use the access key type of credential. Okay. So we have given this table. One is the customer table in which you have the name and the age. Another is the product table. Another is the sales table. So in the sales table, we all have the IDs like customer ID, product ID, warehouse ID, salesperson ID. Then salesperson again name and the department, and warehouse as the warehouse and the name. So we have to tell customer is which table and the sales is a which table. So customer is a you can say whether it's a fact table, dimension table, or bridge table. So customer is a dimension table because it is defining the dimensions, you can say the whole description of the things like name, age. So customer is a dimension table. And what is a sale? Sale is a whether is a dimension. So sale is not a dimension table. So if you clearly look at the sales table, it only contains the IDs field like customer ID, product ID, warehouse ID, sales for ID. So it looks like is a bridge table between them, but not a bridge table, but it is a fact table. So sales is a fact table. Even I am also not sure what is the meaning of the fact table. Earlier I thought it should be the bridge table because it makes a bridge between all the table because it holds the key. But I think the answer is the fact table only. Okay, which service in Azure can be used to process the data in real time, having three components: input, query, and output. So which will use to process the data. So stream analytics job. So this job will process the data, and it has a three component. It will take the input and do the query and then process the output. Okay, so you are building a system that monitors the temperature throughout a set of office blocks and sets the air conditioning in each room in each block to maintain a pleasant ambient temperature. Your system has to manage the air condition in the several thousand buildings spread across the country or region, which each building typically contains at least 100 ACs room. Which type of NoSQL data store is mostly appropriate for capturing the temperature and to process quickly? So we have a NoSQL database. So NoSQL data store is like generally a key value store. We will not use the column family database. So column family database generally used for the wider columns. So wider column means like when we have the lot of columns. So here we are just like capturing the temperature, so city name temperature or room name temperature, that's it. So key value temperature is like okay, so blob storage is also wrong. So in batch processing, so data is processed in real time, wrong. Data is always inserted one row at a time, wrong. Data is processed daily, that is not correct, because it will be processed only when the condition is met, but the latency is expected. So latency means like a little bit, you can say the time delay, so that is expected because the data is huge. Okay, TDE, transparent data encryption, encrypts which data? So this encrypts the data, like when the database, it is basically like to encrypt the data when the data is at the rest. So the database to protect the data at rest. Okay, so uh, the car production workload is facing the issue of surplus goods. Okay, you need to analyze the sales of the last 12 months to determine the requirement of the next month. So we have to determine the requirement of the next month, that is the for the future. So what analysis it is? So that is the predictive analysis. We have to predict about the sales of the future. Okay, so provisioning, so provisioning generally is a term like when we like provision anything, like when I say like you have to start the virtual machine, we have to spin up some virtual machine, so you are provisioning some services over some cloud. So provisioning is the act of running a series of tasks that a service provider performs to create or configure a service. Okay, so which command line tool can be used to query Azure SQL database? So if we create an Azure SQL database, like, and if we have to run some queries, which command we will use? So the command is the SQL command. It's not the like aged data. It's the SQL command. Okay, so we have this table. So in this table, like we have the iPad Air and pair price is 90. We have to update it to 100. So which like command will we use? Like create, change, merge, update. So it should be update. Okay, which type of analytics used advanced data such as camera sensor abandoned in a store to offer extra discount to customer via email? So it is a like cognitive service, because we are using the IoT devices, we are like using the computer vision or custom vision services, so it comes under the cognitive. Next question. Okay, so dash is a virtual table that does not physically exist in SQL Server. So view is a virtual table which doesn't exist in the actual table. Okay, which of the following is an advantage of using multi-region replication? So it has been noticed that whenever we put the data in one region, so let's suppose you have the two region, one is the London, one is the Ireland, so you are putting the data into the London, so generally it is recommended to put the data in some on a second region as well. So why we put the data? Because just to so that the availability is increase, so that just in case, let's suppose if the London region is down, so the customer will not get impacted, and we can like use the like other region. What is the benefit of hosting a database on an Azure SQL managed instance as compared to an Azure SQL database? So what is the benefit if we host a database on the Azure SQL managed instance as compared to the Azure SQL database? Or Azure SQL database is the platform as a service, Azure SQL managed instance as well as the platform as a service. But in the managed instance, like we will decide okay how much CPU we will require. But in the Azure SQL database, we don't decide like how much CPU we will require. Alright, so what is the benefit of the managed instance? So the main benefit, it will like native support cross database queries in the transactions. Rest option is wrong because encryption is for both, high availability is also for both, automated backup is also for both. So these three things is not the difference. The first is the benefit. Even if we can eliminate all the three options if we don't know this. Okay, so we have given some terms, so we have to tell. Okay, so these are the descriptive analysis, diagnostic analysis. So if we read this thing, helps answer question why these things happen. So when the question is like why this is happening, so it comes under the diagnostic analytics. Help answer question about what has happened. So what has happened is come in the descriptive analytics. helps to draw the inferences, it come under the cognitive. What will happen, it come under the predictive. So let's see what will happen. So in the diagnostic, like what has happened, that is wrong, what has happened, that is wrong. Why things happened, so diagnostic is correct. Predictive is what will happen, that is also correct. Cognitive is helps about what has happened, so that is wrong. So I think this is correct. Help answer about what has happened, correct. Why things happen, that is diagnostic. What will happen, that is predictive. And draw inferences, that is cognitive. Okay, so platform as a service database offering and Azure reduce the administrative overhead, that is correct. Platform as a service database offering in Azure provides high availability, that is also correct. Platform as a service database offering in Azure provides configuration scaling options, so that is also correct. Which type of analytics helps answer what has happened? So what has happened comes under the descriptive analytics. So how does a relation database enforce data integrity? So it ensure every column follow the data type. It prevent record from being inserted if it doesn't exist in some another table. Prevent records to being deleted if it rely on some of them. Prevents null value on column which doesn't allow. So all these options will enforce data integrity. In context of relation database, what is schema? Schema is the structure of the database including table name, so that is correct, so no change is needed. Okay, which of the following Azure database service has granted 100% compatibility? So when we spin up an SQL server in our virtual machine, so that will definitely grant the 100% compatibility. There is a temperature sensor in the factory which will send temperature data. So the data is coming in the real time, so it is come under the streaming data. Azure Data Factory supports a trigger that is scheduled at a predetermined time but can pretend it to running at another time. For instance, a job runs every day at noon but only process the data received until midnight last night. So what trigger it is called? So it is a tumbling window trigger. So tumbling window trigger means it doesn't matter when we are triggering this, whether we are triggering at 2 p.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m. doesn't matter, but it will process the data for a particular duration. So let's suppose we like select the range, like it should process the data from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. right, but we are triggering it at 6 p.m. so it doesn't mean like it will process the data till 6 p.m. No, it will process the data for the particular time duration which we have mentioned. What are the services in Azure can be used to process the data? Okay, so can be used to process the data. So process the data is the stream analytics and the synapse analytics. We have to set the two option. DDL is which command? It's a create. Which deployment requires the fewest changes in migration? Okay, so if we spin up the SQL server in the virtual machine, then it is 100% compatible. It doesn't need even a single change. Okay, which type of SQL used by the SQL server? It is a TSQL. Dash is an example of semi-structured data. So JSON file is an example of the semi-structured data. Next question. Which one of the following tasks is the role of the database administrator? So database administrator will perform generally the backup and the restoring databases. What is the primary difference between the data lake and the data warehouse? So the difference is data lake and data warehouse both will store the data, but the data lake will store the raw data and data warehouse store the structured data. So a data lake holds the raw data and the data warehouse holds the structured data. Okay, to configure an Azure storage account to support both security at the folder level and atomic dictionary manipulation. So if you read the question properly, we are saying that we are maintaining a storage account. We have to like support the security feature at the folder level, that is one folder, and then atomic, that is atomic directory, like subfolders. So you need to what we need to do. So it is a kind of hierarchy. So correct option is we have to enable the hierarchy namespace, so that like whatever the feature will apply on this, it will should like go into the atomic directory as well. Okay, table storage is the absolute cheapest way, so that is wrong. Blob storage is the cheapest way. Even table storage is the costliest. Okay, what is graph? Key value, column, family, object. Okay, so graph is an employee data that shows the relationship between employee. That is correct. A column family application uses and their default language. That is wrong. So that is a, so let's read the option number 4. Looks option number 4 looks correct. A graph is an employee data that shows a relationship between employees. That is correct. Key value is the which application users and their default language. That is correct. And object is object comes under the like the medical images. So that is correct. Okay, you have an SQL pool in Azure Synapse Analytics that is used actively every night for 8 hours. You need to minimize the cost of the SQL pool during idle times. So it used only for the 8 hours, then it become idle. So how we will like save the cost? So we will just pause the pool rather than deleting the pool. Delete is the wrong option. A dash is an object associated with the table that sorts the data row in the table on their key value. So index, clustered index will sort the data. Okay, when using an Azure SQL database managed instance, what is the simplest way to implement the backup? So we don't need to even implement because the backups are automatically handled in the Azure SQL data because it is a platform as a service. Okay, your company has a reporting solution that has paginated reports. Your reports query a dimensional model from a data warehouse. So what type of processing does this reporting solution do? So it is the analytics processing. From the warehouse, generally we will use the analytics processing. Blob storage is an Azure database product designed to handle non-relation data. So that is wrong. So Cosmos DB is designed for the non-relation data, and that is the JSON data. Which of the following are the common characteristics of a data warehouse? So one characteristic is that it will store the massive data, and other characteristics is that it's optimized for reading. It's not for the writing. Okay, which objects can be handled to a Microsoft Power BI dashboard? So what all thing we can do? Can we add a Microsoft PowerPoint slide? That is wrong. And data flow wrong. A text we can add, an image we can add, a visualization from a report we can add, like we can draw some charts. A report page we can do that. Okay, what is extract, load, and so your company plans to load data from a customer CRM. So we are loading the data from the CRM. So loads come under the CRM system. So load should be the CRM system. So for load warehouse wrong, load is wrong. So option number C looks correct. So load is from the CRM system, and then it is the ELT. ELT means extract, load, and transform. So first we extract from the CRM, then we will load into the warehouse, and then transform into the warehouse only, because it's the ELT, not the ETL. So that's why uh, um load is CRM, but extract is warehouse, and the transform is also in the warehouse. So that's it. Okay, we have one question wrong, so let's review which question is wrong. Oh, sorry. I am explaining the correct, but I have put the wrong option. So extract is from the CRM. We are extracting, that is ETL. Extract is from the CRM. Then we will load into the warehouse and then transform into the warehouse. So it's option number 2. Yeah, everything is correct. So yeah, thank you.